Hello everyone out there in Geek Battle Gaming land. Today we are going to have another review. We've got 2 or 3 videos going up today alone, and it is the first-person shooter on the Atari VCS. This is Madness Beverage. It's downloadable right now, so let's check it out. Madness Beverage is the first-person shooter to be available on the Atari VCS, which when you think about it, is kind of nuts considering how many first-person shooter games there are out there. It certainly makes for a welcome addition to the types of games and genres that you can get on Atari's little box that could. But is the game worth your time? In the game, you play as a space dude with attitude who goes from planet to planet in his spaceship in his quest to defeat the evil Manos, who is a villain inspired by Thanos from the Avengers.
Open the fucking gate now and stop playing around. You are coming with me.
Literally, he looks like a bloated version of Thanos, or Thanos if he was played by Slimer from Ghostbusters. The game has a unique idea that you can collect and drink a variety of magical beverages that give you extra abilities and powers such as increased speed or force-like powers, or that you'll see phantom bad guys that aren't there but you'll be more powerful to shoot them, or I don't know, like it's weird that the whole game is literally titled after beverages. You'll have to get through the first full level to start getting these, and truthfully, I didn't try most of the available beverages in completing the game. The game is a very mixed bag, and I have mixed feelings on it. I got this as I was excited to play the first-person shooter game available for the Atari VCS, but truthfully wouldn't have given it a second look on other consoles. Case in point, it's been out on other platforms for the last 2 years, and I didn't know it existed. Still, being the only FPS game on the VCS means it gets more attention on this platform than it would elsewhere, and is automatically the best first-person shooter game on the console. This sounds like a cheap victory, but a smaller developer supporting the platform with a new genre is what can bring new eyes and fans to a game like this. I did play the game all the way through, which is more than I've done with some Call of Duty campaigns. But again, that's partly because it's the only game of its type on the Atari console, and figured I'd see it through to the bitter end. Of course, that wasn't a huge commitment, as the game can be beaten in just a few hours. There are about 6 or 7 levels in the game, and you do get a couple of hub areas. At times it feels like there is a decent game in here somewhere, but there are so many ideas that don't feel fully fleshed out or properly realised. Between the levels, you will find yourself on your spaceship, which you can explore and then choose which level you want to challenge next. There's next to no reason to have this ship though, as other than a secret artwork object you can find at the back of the ship, there is nothing else to explore on board. Or at least, not that I found. There is also a planet you can go to which is effectively a big shop, as there is a market where you can refill ammo and meet someone to get the magical beverages. The market level is also populated by all kinds of alien races and beings, but you can't interact with any of them, so it's a bit bizarre to include them and do nothing at all with them. I'm also not sure what the point of choosing which level to do next is. I guess if you find one too challenging, you could mix things up and do another. But it's not really that you'd find specific items or weapons that make a significant difference on each level. That will help if you do them in a certain order. You can hold 2 regular weapons at a time, and later on you get a bigger and better weapon, which means you can carry 3 at a time. At the end of the game, spoiler warning, you get a magical unicorn mask, and if you hold its horn, you can blow up lots of enemies all in one go. I don't know, it's weird, but it's also fun and it knows it's a bit weird. So you can also hold 2 magical beverages and some grenades, and you can choose which of these you want to carry with you by accessing a Resident Evil style item box. These boxes are few and far between and only really useful if somehow you've run out of ammo in a gun and need to pick up a replacement. I found I ran out of ammo only a couple of times in the game, and that defeated enemies will frequently drop both ammo and health items. There's very little in way of puzzles in the game, with only one real puzzle, which I didn't quite fathom, but just by pressing some random stuff, I managed to get through it. There are a few more areas where you have to press switches to open doors, but mostly the game is just lots and lots of areas where you have to kill all of the enemies to progress. The levels are often maze-like, and this was fairly frustrating at times. It'd be fine except for the scenery mostly looks exactly the same throughout each level, so you'll be relying on the indicator at the top of the screen to direct you in the vague direction that you need to go to for the next objective. The levels vary from a castle to a forest to an ice level and a spaceship to a hellscape and an alien world. You get maybe one or two areas where there is some light platforming required, and this includes at the start of the hell level. I fell over and over again just down into the lava or whatever it was in the hell level, and I couldn't even see why this was happening, and so it was a little bit frustrating, but fortunately this didn't continue on for more than the first section of the level. I can't help but feel that if all of the ideas I've discussed here were fleshed out and worked on for a while, there could have been a good game here. The graphics look decent at times, but in many areas, and especially when in motion, it gave me vibes of an HD Dreamcast game, or that it just was like a PS2 style designed game. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I'm sure the Atari VCS is actually up to more. Also, I experienced a fair amount of slowdown as levels began, which wasn't good. It was okay for the most part, but when loading up a new level in particular, I did notice some slowdown. The enemies were a mixed bag. The first level basically just has one or two types of enemies, which are weird, dark, ghost alien things. But as the game goes on, you'll be meeting a variety of bad guys. This includes floating hands, small blobby things with guns, and huge demons. Bosses also include giant worms, a dragon, and human-like foes. There are a few bosses in the game, and the most impressive of these is the dragon. This should have been the final boss rather than Manos, in my opinion. Madness Beverage is a game that has been available on PC and other consoles for a couple of years, and whilst it may be the best first-person shooter on the Atari VCS by default, it's just not the greatest example of its genre by a long way. Oh, and also there's a couple of amusing controller botches to note. The store page on the VCS says that it can be played with the Atari Classic controller, and it didn't seem like it could. Frankly, I couldn't imagine how a first-person shooter could just play with perhaps 2 buttons and a spinner. I'd be amazed if it was possible, but I doubt it. Also, when you actually play the game and bring up the controller info, it still shows an Xbox controller with the Xbox logo in the center. So, despite my finding a lot of faults with Madness Beverage, terrible name by the way, I did actually have some fun with it, but the game was short enough that I could feel determined to see it through. If it had been much longer or been a more expensive game, I'd have probably felt more likely to give up and be less forgiving. If you want some first-person shooter action on your VCS, this is currently your only choice, and it's okay. But do manage your expectations. If you have other platforms, you could consider getting this if it was on sale, but on any other platform, there will be loads better games to choose from in this genre. On the VCS, this shows that the console can host some shooters, and hopefully there'll be some more. So that was my review of Madness Beverage for the Atari VCS. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it within the bubble of the Atari VCS. I don't think it's the greatest game outside of that bubble, but for a first-person shooter on the VCS, who am I to complain? So, if you haven't done so already, do make sure you go to www.xstreamed.tv, where you will be able to read the article version of this video and find all of our other podcast videos and such, etc, etc. Now, make sure you smash that subscribe button on youtube.com/Geek Battle Gaming, which is where you are watching this now. And until next time, stay safe, always stay extremed, and ciao for now. Boom! And we're off the air. I swear it turns out I'm not recording.